We are doing it.
Hey,
all right. We are back. Welcome to Suspicious Minds. I am Burl, and with me is, of course, always...
It's me, Wade. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Wade. So, yeah, good to be back. Good to be doing this again. Feels like it's been too long.
It always feels like that.
Yeah. But we're back. We're doing it. And I think we got a pretty good one this week. Pretty fun.
Yeah. Today we are talking about the 30th anniversary of the Elvis stamp.
Yeah. And what better way to do it than to just dive right in? Yeah, the 29-cent Elvis stamp. Which,
right.
Like, if you still had one today, you could use it, but you'd probably need like two of them to mail something.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about stamps. All of the stamps say on them forever now, which in some ways is good because it's like, well, I bought the stamp like 5 years ago and I don't know what the postage rate is now, but I can still use these stamps without having to add additional postage. But if you were to ask me how much an individual stamp costs now, I would have no idea.
My guess would be $2.50.
Yeah, something like that. No, there's no way it costs that much. But still, it's not 29 cents anymore.
It's not 29 cents. No, it's probably double that, I would guess. Probably at least double that. Yeah.
Yeah, we should look that up.
It would be good information to know, talking about stamps, how much currently a stamp would cost.
Yeah.
You would think one of us would have done that. But
well, that's not related to Elvis. That's related to stamps. So,
right.
We don't need to know it.
Yeah. Neither one of us engages full time in, what is it, philately? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It sounds a little vulgar, but
it sounds like something you'd get put in prison if you got caught doing it.
I gave myself a pronunciation guide here. The study of stamps and stamp collectors called themselves philatelists.
Yeah.
And my pronunciation guide, it's like falafel.
It says it like falafel. It says pronounce it like falafel.
Right. Well, that's my notes for myself.
Oh, I got you.
Right.
I thought like you had looked it up on the internet and it's like just like falafel. Yeah. It's like okay. Because I was man, that's like the laziest pronunciation guide.
Well,
ever.
I'm phenomenally lazy, so that's just the pronunciation guide for myself. And what's the going rate for falafel these days? Anyway,
that's 29 cents. So if you traded one Elvis stamp from 1993, you could get one falafel, not like the sandwich, just the one falafel.
Yeah, just a falafel ball straight out of the hot grease into your hands.
Yeah, no napkin or anything because that would cost extra.
Right.
But if you give them two stamps, you could get a napkin.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So keep that in mind.
Sure.
If you're hungry and you've got like a book of Elvis stamps, just head to your nearest falafel restaurant and you'll do well. Have we completely lost it? Have we completely gone off the rails already? Usually it takes us till the end. Like, usually at the end, we've lost it, but we lost it right at the beginning.
Well, this ought to be a pretty short episode, so we need to pad it out as much as possible.
That's probably true.
So, the Elvis stamp was issued on January 8th, 1993, which was, of course, Elvis's birthday. He would have been, in 93, what was it?
58. He would have been 58, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds right. 58th birthday, still relatively young, all things considered, had he lived. And the Elvis stamp marked the beginning of what was known as the Legends of American Music series, which ended up being, over the course of 6 years, a series of 70 stamps, which covered all kinds of different musicians and performers and figures, like behind-the-scenes figures, a couple of them. A couple of them were dedicated to just Broadway musicals. There's a Porgy and Bess stamp.
Okay.
Kind of weird, part of the same series. In 1993, Elvis was the first one, but after that, we also got Bill Haley of Bill Haley and the Comets.
Yeah.
We got Clyde McPhatter. We got Richie Valens, Otis Redding. That's a good one there. Buddy Holly.
Nice.
And Dinah Washington was the last one of the 1993 Legends of American Music stamps.
Of all of those, which one was the one that you had to look up?
To be honest, Clyde McFadden.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be Clyde
like,
McFadden for me too.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like how two of these stamps, Richie Valens and Buddy Holly, died on the same day at the same time.
Right.
Which had to like go into that decision a little bit. I'm very glad they didn't go with a Big Bopper stamp.
Yeah, now here's the thing. Do either one of those stamps include a plane in it?
Ooh, I doubt it.
I doubt it. I doubt it. So
Right.
that would just be poor taste.
Yeah. But, at least the first round of stamps, like really nice looking set of stamps, real professional portraits, is a little bit interesting about the image they decided to use for Elvis for the stamp, if you could tell that story.
So the U.S. Postal Service, they commissioned 8 artists to develop designs for the Elvis stamp. Mm-hmm. And now they came up with around 60 sketches and paintings. And they all had different stuff, like abstract, modernist designs, that watercolors, all sorts of stuff. And then they kind of whittled it down from that to 2, basically. One of which being a 50s style and an aloha from Hawaii. And what were the name of the 2 artists? Do you remember?
The 50s Elvis watercolor was painted by Mark Stutzman. And the 70s Elvis was painted by John Berkey.
And then, I believe in a first for the U.S. Postal Service, they let the American public decide which one do you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which they'd never done before. Usually it's just, here's your damn stamp.
Right.
Take it or leave it, pal. You don't like it? Well, maybe we'll redesign it in a couple years. But they didn't do that. They sent out a bunch of ballots, a couple million.
Yeah, and you could pick these up at your local post office. Just, they had stacks of them, if I remember it correctly. And a confession to make, I'm not sure who in our family picked up the ballots for this, but I remember we had a stack of these things. And you want to talk about integrity of elections. My brother and I definitely did our part in stuffing the ballot box.
In what favor? Or do you talk about who you vote for? Is that okay? I don't want to infringe upon your right to just remain anonymous about this.
Sure.
If you'd like.
Normally I would not say, but we were definitely in the tank for 50s Elvis at the time.
Okay.
My brother and I.
All right. Very interesting.
And we felt that was like the only choice, really. And we can get into like the reasons why that seemed to be like how we felt in a minute. But I do think it's really interesting to point out that both of these portraits were done in like landscape dimensions and not portrait dimensions,
Right.
So, and a lot of these stamps in this American Music series, and they all kind of share the same format, they're either cutting off the top of somebody's head or like the bottom of their chin. You know what I mean? It's like, it's real weird. It's like, just have it like oriented like a portrait and you can see their full face. I don't know what the decision was behind that. Otherwise, if I'm remembering it correctly, the winning portrait, the 1950s Elvis, it's a real small head on like a pretty large design.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and it cuts off the top of his pompadour, right?
Right.
A little bit.
Right, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, he's known for his hair.
Exactly.
Partially. That was his look. And even the 70s one, cuts off the top of his head.
Right.
It's sort of a profile picture, which cuts off the top of his head as well. But yeah, so they got back, the U.S. Postal Service, I found it here, they got back around 1.2 million ballots. Now, how many, like, what percentage of do you think you were of that? Like,
I would say
7 to 8%.
Between me and my brother, I'm gonna say we probably voted 20 times.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. We had a thick stack of them.
Like, how much free time did you have as kids? Didn't you have like paper routes or like lawns demo or something?
Well, all you got to do is just check the box, and toss it in the mailbox.
Still seems time consuming.
Yeah,
it seems like a lot.
Right.
And then, did you have to mail it back in, or did you have to apply postage for it, or was there already postage on it? Do you remember?
I'm going to say it was no postage needed, because what a scam that would have been.
Yeah, but a pretty brilliant scam.
Yeah, very, very lucrative scam. But I want to say it was like postage was included.
Okay.
But it's a little shameful now to think like how much I wanted the 50s portrait to win. And there's really nothing wrong with the painting. I mean, it's like a perfectly good painting. And one would say, this word gets overused in podcasts a lot, but iconic, the image. Sure. It's been a part of like pop culture for 30 years now. To the point where I actually had a t-shirt that I used to knock around in back then with the winning design on it.
Wow. So if you wanted to mail yourself someplace, you could have used that shirt as postage?
I could have.
You could have gotten anywhere in the United States for 29 cents. Or for the cost of a t-shirt.
The only hitch in the giddy up there, I couldn't fit in the mailbox.
Here's the thing. I think if you tried, or you could have just gone to a post office and just jumped over the counter.
Right.
Maybe.
I'm just hanging on to a letter and wearing the shirt and say like, look, legally you have to mail me.
Exactly. Just stamp it,
Right.
And I think it would have worked. I think it would have been pretty good. Now, in retrospect, because I remember this coming out, I remember there being a ballot. I think even at the time, I probably would have voted for the 70s Elvis.
Sure.
Because I think that's the Elvis I kind of knew. Right? Like the 50s Elvis already seemed kind of antiquated to me.
Right.
And the 70s jumpsuit era Elvis kind of just seemed like, even then, if you went to see an Elvis impersonator or whatever, they would be wearing an Elvis jumpsuit. That's the image that was in everyone's mind of Elvis. We kind of stuck. And I understand that the demographic at that time was different. The people that would have known Elvis probably would have been young Elvis, not Vegas era Elvis, or I guess. And I know this is not the most popular opinion, but I like the music from that era better. I like what he was doing better. That's just my opinion. So,
sure. I mean, it's the sort of thing that I think I definitely appreciate as an older guy, like the more mature sound of the 70s stuff, like the subject matter. I mean, and not to take anything away from the 50s stuff, it's just that though a lot of that kind of lives in retro rockabilly world to me.
Sure.
Once again, not criticizing, just saying it's like, it's not a daily listen in the way that like the 70s stuff is. But let me just give you a theory about why I think the 50s design won.
Okay.
It's the same phenomenon that happened when like Michael Jackson died. Because it's like he spent, almost like 2 decades destroying his legacy before he died.
Yeah.
Not 2 decades. I don't know. Maybe.
A while. Yeah. I mean, long enough.
It was a while. But the day Michael Jackson died, he automatically reverted back to like, oh, well, it's a Beat It jacket and the Thriller video. And that's just who he is to everybody. And it's like everybody kind of conveniently forgets all the other stuff. The same thing with Prince. Like when Prince died, he's like, oh, well, he's Purple Rain Man. And it's like, well, he had like 25 years of stuff after that. I mean, he was not nearly as clownish and embarrassing as like Michael Jackson was towards the end, Prince. But still, it's just celebrities have a way of like reverting back to the public's favorite memory of them after they die. And I think that's what happened with Elvis. It's like, when he died, the 50s Elvis just became the default setting. We talked about this on the Heartbreak Hotel episode when we reviewed that movie.
Right.
The 80s belonged to the 50s Elvis.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it was the 70s era Elvis that they got to shave down and wear basically 50s style attire.
Right. And in that movie,
in that movie. Right.
Yeah, in that movie, they're like, oh, well, there's nothing less cool than 70s Elvis, which is just absurd. But that's just the way the wind was blowing in the 80s, man.
Yeah.
And, 1993 is basically still kind of the 80s, a little bit.
Yeah, I wish that there would have just been a split the difference thing where, honestly, I think it would have made both camps happy if they had just done a 68 black leather.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I mean, had that been an option, there was A, B, or C, and I guess A and B are already taken, so C would have been 68 special Elvis in the black.
Right.
I think that would have won hands down. But what's crazy is, and I don't think we've already mentioned this, but how it was like 75% of the people voted for the 50s Elvis for the stamp.
That was just
it wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. Because what's weird is, and as much as I understand what you're saying about him reverting back to the 50s, Aloha, and we talked about this when we talked about Aloha in another program that we did, probably one of the biggest things he ever did in his career.
Sure.
And how many people saw him, a billion, in that era, and he looked good, and he was in great voice, and there is nothing wrong with that era of him. I understand why they wouldn't want to do like 75, 76, 77 era Elvis, but this is like 73, still looking good, in great voice, whatever. I mean, no use crying about it now. They chose who they chose, but out of the 1.2 million ballots, 851,000 of them were for the young Elvis. That's the 277,000, give or take. I mean, these are kind of rounded off, but to the 70s era Elvis.
Well,
just crazy.
It begs the question that would it be easier for your average normie to accept 70s Elvis more if his like wardrobe varied a little bit? Because it's just like once he hit the stage in Vegas and like, what was it, 69 was his first round of dates as a live performer again. He was just like, you know what? It's just going to be jumpsuits from here on out. And it was for like 9 years. And there are obviously dozens of variations of the jumpsuit, but they all
what if there had been the gypsy jumpsuit with the one with the choker, the puffy sleeves?
Right. Yeah.
I might vote. I want to vote for that one. I think that might have got some people on board.
That reminds me, we need to do like a jumpsuit bracket episode, like
write it down,
like Battle of the Jumpsuits.
A jumpsuit shootout.
Right. But so many of the jumpsuits followed like the exact same template. The high collar, the bell-bottom trousers, big
deep
belt. Deep V, big belt. But also sometimes...
boots with guns in
right.
Both boots, yeah. Or like I said, probably one boot with a gun and then extra clips on the other boot. That's always what I think he would do. But that's just me.
Here's the thing. It's like late 60s and all throughout the 70s, your bell-bottom trousers, your boot-cut pants were all the rage. Sure. And if there was anything that was going on in the 80s that I could say definitively was bell-bottom panic. That lasted through the entirety of the 80s into the 90s. And I think that has a lot to do with the public's like perception of Elvis from the 70s.
With the exception of you being the original bass player for Metallica, nobody was wearing bell bottoms. Shout out to Cliff Burton. So
yeah,
Cliff them all, man.
Cliff them all. Metallica died the day that Cliff died, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, I don't want to get any letters.
You know, people are like, oh, well, they started to suck with the Black Album. I'm like, well,
I mean, I don't know.
You know,
I know what you're saying. And Justice for All doesn't even have a bass on it. You know, I mean, it's there, but they just turned it down so much that you couldn't even hear it. So
yeah, and I read an explanation for why that was, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's like a hazing thing, which just sounds stupid. So you're going to have somebody like record parts for an album and not include it on the album? Like, that's dumb. And
I think that was a drug-induced hazing thing.
The real explanation that I heard from James Hetfield and Lars is that they went in to listen to the mixes right after they'd come out on tours, or right after they'd come off a tour, and their ears were shot. And they were
I think that's just an excuse.
And they were like, yeah, it's just, we weren't wearing ear protection, and it's just like, yeah, our ears were like dead. And that's why it's this kind of like a rattle can sound on that album. Anyway, why are we talking about Metallica?
I brought it up because of bell bottoms, Cliff Burton's bell bottoms. Yeah. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, people, yes, definitely bell bottoms and the high collar and the jumpsuit thing was very not cool.
Yeah, it's just, once again, there's nothing less cool than the pop culture of 15 years ago.
Right. And I think that the 70s era kind of would call to mind an Elvis impersonator kind of thing.
Right.
Which is probably, again, why people went with the 50s.
Which, you know, don't get me wrong, there's an army of really great, dedicated Elvis performers out there kicking ass and taking names and doing like great shows. But I would say there is a majority of Elvis impersonators that are opportunists and were like, well, I can kind of carry a tune and I can dye my hair black and I can buy this jumpsuit online for like a couple $100 and I'm just going to try to make a buck this way. And going out and doing it karaoke style and just really destroying the image of Elvis in the process. I'm not a huge fan of 80% of Elvis impersonators.
Yeah, a lot of them are pretty bad. But that might be a subject for another episode.
Yeah. Let's circle back to that at some point. Well. Anyway, the 50s design won, and it's fine. It's a good looking stamp.
And I think I shouldn't mention, so that was 1993 is when it came out, because there was a rule at the time that they wouldn't use somebody who was alive. They needed to have passed away 10 years prior before you could have a stamp for them. Now, there were stamps in other countries that had Elvis on them. And I think at that time, I think there were about 14 countries, a couple of Caribbean nations, and West Germany. And I don't know all of them, but I don't have a list of all of them. But they said it would say about 14 countries had them. So we weren't the first, but it was the first time in the U.S. that it happened. So there was a little bit of a controversy around the Elvis stamp.
Yeah, there certainly was. May I run the risk of offending any philatelists in the audience? But there was the thought at the time that musical artists, especially pop artists, were way too frivolous for the stamp treatment, which I don't know. I don't know where they get off. It's like, do you want all your stamps to depict like Hoover Dam and George Washington? And like, what are we even doing here? Can't really stamps be about anything? And I think this was kind of like the dam buster when finally people were willing to accept stamps being about pop culture stuff. And, and then the 30 years since, I mean, we've had Marvel Comics stamps. I've sent out postcards to people with blue-eyed Ben Grimm, the ever-loving thing on a stamp,
Sure.
Which would have been like unthinkable 30 years ago. There's like stamps with the Scarlet Witch on them and crap like that and all kinds of silly stuff. There was also a lot of controversy for this Legends of American Music series for the inconsistency of the images. And I looked through a listing of them, and it is true. Some of the portraits are like really great and really spot on. And actually, any of the first round, the 1993 round, they're all like really great portraits, including the Elvis one. I mean, the Otis Redding stamp is awesome. The Buddy Holly stamp looks really good. But the series ended in 1999, and kind of towards the end, I don't know who they were getting to do these designs, but some of these images are just these clownish caricatures, almost like borderline offensive. So you think an artist who's like tapped to create an image for a stamp would be at the top of their game and trying really hard. But yeah, there's some really bad ones. I wish I'd have compiled a list of the worst ones that people could look up.
So how good is the Clyde McPhatter one? Or I guess if you don't know what he looks like, then you really have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I'd say all the original designs are great. They look good. I'd stick them on my gas bill.
Well, but here's the thing. Yeah, right. Yeah, on my electric bill and stuff. But I think what it really comes down to, and I think this is why Elvis started this trend, is because of how many they sold. So when it comes down to the brass tacks, it's all kind of about money. They sold 500 million of them. So when you sell 500 million stamps, even at 29 cents a stamp, you're like, yeah, maybe we'll do that again. Because I know they came out with like a Marilyn Monroe stamp. They came out with James Dean after this. Like a lot of celebrities started making their way onto stamps because they could sell a lot.
Sure. And, just as somebody who like occasionally wanders into a post office and buys stamps, there's really probably nothing I wouldn't buy if it like made me chuckle. I'd buy a Corey Feldman stamp. I mean, that sounds awesome.
How good are you at drawing? Maybe you could make a sketch or something with Corey Feldman, try and get it put on a stamp.
Start a petition. Oh, hey, here's one. Cliff Burton. How about a Cliff Burton stamp?
I'm into it. Yeah, let's do it.
He's been dead over 10 years. Let's do it.
Yeah, quite a while now. Wow. When did he die? 86?
86, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Wow,
on
before this stamp even came out.
On
He
the
was
Master
halfway to
Puppets tour.
stampable.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, by the time that stamp came out. Let's see if we can get Cliff Burton on a stamp.
But, the funny thing about the Elvis stamp is that is not the only time he has been issued on a U.S. stamp.
And it was again in what year?
2015 is a part of a series of stamps called Music Icons. And the 2015 Elvis stamp is just a photograph. And it's a photograph from William Spear from 1955. Mm-hmm. It's a black and white photo. It's an image you've probably seen before. I don't know. It's wild that everybody remembers the original Elvis stamp, and the 2015 one barely made a blip. Well, it just goes to show the changing landscape of stamps and what people expected from it. But anyway, as a result, there are only 3 Americans who have been featured on multiple U.S. stamps that have not been presidents. Elvis is one of them, obviously.
Yeah. Ben Franklin?
No. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
And Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Of all people. Just those 3 people have been featured on more than one stamp, and they have not been presidents.
That's weird. You would think Franklin would have been on more than one, because I'm guessing he's been on one. I think he was on the first one.
The first stamp.
The very first stamp, I think the U.S. stamp would have been a Ben Franklin stamp. Because he even started the Postal Service and everything. So, yeah, interesting.
I'll be a monkey's uncle.
That's all right. He's on the $100 bill. So take your wins where you can, I guess.
Right.
So what's kind of interesting is this was such a big to-do that they had a big celebration at Graceland to commemorate it.
Oh, of course they did.
On January 8th. They had bands playing. There was fireworks. They broadcast it live. George Klein hosted it. It was a big thing. And they even had a makeshift post office there so you could buy stamps at Graceland. Which is pretty awesome, I think,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Priscilla spoke at it. And they had a bunch of people from Elvis's past. Sam Phillips was there. He told a very bizarre story. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out. The whole thing. It's about 25 minutes. I think it even has some old commercials in it, which is pretty great.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's Klein. He interviews a couple people. But yeah, one of them is Sam Phillips, and he tells this bizarre story about Elvis coming over to his house and him being really subdued. He's like, Sam, you gotta come in the other room. I gotta ask you something. And he thought he had contracted some sort of, I would say, social disease. And he's telling the story at Graceland on television where they're about ready to let the stamp out. This is like a story you tell some friends over a beer. But he's like, so he shows me this growth or something. He's like, oh, you just got a carbuncle, which I didn't know what the hell that meant. But apparently it's like a boil. But in his pelvic region. So they took him to the hospital to get it lanced. It's like, why did you just tell this story? But it's really funny. And if you watch it, Sam Phillips seems about half in the bag. And it's Sam Phillips with the big beard and he looks like he's kind of lives out in the woods somewhere at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But worth a watch. Definitely worth a watch. But pretty cool. And like I said, at the end of it, it ends with fireworks and all that stuff. And you did not watch this, or you did watch this?
I did. I remember watching this as it aired because if I'm remembering it correctly, January 8th, 1993, we still would have been on winter break. Then basically all I did when I was home for my winter breaks in college back then is just park it in front of the TV.
Well, as you should. Just rest your laurels. You've done enough. You had 16 hard weeks of fall semester. And now it's your time.
Attending upwards of maybe even 3 classes in one day. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, man. Working your fingers right down to the elbow, as they say,
You're
right?
3 40-minute classes a day that I had to deal with. Oh, my God.
I can't even believe it. I don't know how you stayed awake even for that time off you had. I'm shocked you just didn't hibernate through all of it. But no, I did not watch it when it originally aired, but I did watch it on YouTube. And like I said, it is worth a watch. So you can go watch it. Just put in basically 1993 Elvis stamp. It's on there. It's about 26 minutes, 30 minutes long. Definitely worth a watch. You can skip around. Definitely go to the Sam Phillips part. So.
Oh, sure.
So all this stuff we were talking about happened in 1993, and I'm thinking it might be time to take a trip on the Wayback Machine.
Ooh, the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, if you have anything prepared. I'm assuming you do.
I do. These were the events. These were what was happening in the year of our Lord, 1993. January 8th. The number one movie in the country, January 8th, 1993. Would you like to wager a guess?
Oh, hold on. 1993, The Fugitive, starring Harrison Ford.
No. It was A Few Good Men, tops of the box office. Though close second was Aladdin.
Oh, wow. The Disney.
With the Blue Man.
Yeah, the Blue Man. Yeah, the Robin Williams. There you go.
But they were, I looked, week to week, and they were battling it out at the box office for like a few weeks. Right after Christmas, Aladdin, obviously, like Disney's big Christmas release, and I assume A Few Good Men, same deal. The prestige picture of the two. But anyway, number one song in the country, January 8th, 1993. I Will Always Love You by the late, great Whitney Houston.
Oh, so it was that. I thought you were just talking to me there for a second. But yes, I'm shocked that I would have thought it would have been something like Nirvana, maybe. Yeah, because he probably had something. That might have been maybe just post. Never mind. Yeah. So
because January 93, Nevermind would have been like late 91.
Still in our hearts, number one.
Sure, still in our hearts. But like Nirvana ruling the charts, I think, was a December 91, January 92 phenomenon. So the number one album of January 8th, 1993, if you want to guess.
Thriller by Michael Jackson. No?
No. It should make sense. The Bodyguard soundtrack.
Oh, well, there you go. It seems like that would make... Yeah, that's obviously what it would be. Yeah. Can I guess again? Was it the Bodyguard soundtrack?
It was.
Oh, wow. Well, I got one right. There we go. Cool. One for me column. You got it.
And for number one TV show, I included a few of them to kind of give like a more broad spectrum of what was going on back then. The number one show that week was 60 Minutes.
Wow. That's lame.
Yeah, well, it could have been like at any point. But I don't know. Was like 60 Minutes, have they always done like monster numbers like that?
Probably not, but this is back when they had Andy Rooney, so...
there you go.
Back when they had him, I mean, the people tuned in to see him. He was cantankerous, and, he was a real showman. If I would have had a guess, I would have said, It's Your Move, starring Jason Bateman.
Oh, God damn it.
Right?
It would have been about half a decade off, or a full decade.
Sure.
But 60 Minutes back then. Ed Bradley, Morley Safer, Diane Sawyer, the Dream Team.
A murderer's row.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, of news anchors.
Hard-hitting journalism.
Yeah.
But I also include on that list because it's like basically these three shows kind of traded off top spots back then. 60 Minutes, Home Improvement, a show that I have still never seen more than 1 minute of.
Don't let the JTT posters on your wall fool you. You've never watched the damn show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who's the dude who stars? Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. And then also Seinfeld was a huge deal, which to me, it feels like 60 Minutes was for everybody. Home Improvement was for Middle America. Seinfeld was for the coasts.
Okay, probably true. All right. Yeah. What other weighed back information do you, or is that it? Is that everything? What else you got?
That's it. What else would there be? Like,
what was the number one sandwich at Subway at that time? If you were to wager a guess.
Oh, 1993? Jeez. Probably something like Cold Cut Combo.
Yeah, I'm going to say, what is it, BMT?
What is that?
I don't know.
What is
it? Like I think the first two letters tell you everything that sandwich is about. It's like their Italian meat combo, I think. Isn't it called the BMT? Did I just make that up?
It's something I would have never ordered, but like I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
It sounds awful. Yeah, it's like I used to work right across the street from a Subway, so sometimes it would be once in a blue moon, it would be like the default. Okay, this is where we're getting food from, and I'll be goddamned how they can screw up a sandwich. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they did it all wrong back then.
It's like bread, cheese, meat, sauces, and maybe some vegetables. And it's like all the ways that you can go wrong, they seem to like tick all the boxes. God damn it, I hate Subway.
Now, this is probably 1993. They were probably still making their sandwiches all weird, which is what they would do is basically give the bread like a reverse mohawk. Remember that?
Right.
They'd cut out like that tunnel and they'd shove everything in it and then put this like strip of bread back on the top. Who told them to do it that way? It just makes no sense. It's just like cut it down the side.
Yeah, maybe they were going for some sort of like signature thing or something, but like
it was a thing that confounded me every time I went into a Subway back then.
Because
would you believe that the BMT? We could segue into it. Would you believe that the BMT was the number one sandwich at Subway back then?
Well, it sure as hell wasn't the seafood and crab.
But here's the thing. I would think, though, that if they gave out medals, that one would get on the podium. Never. It would never get on the podium. No. I would think some sort of cold meat, like a ham and cheese sort of thing.
Veggie combo. The meatball has been on the menu for...
meatball. Like, I bet the meatball would podium. That would be on the podium. Yeah. Do they have one that's just like gravy? Like a gravy bread and fries?
Yeah, the poutine sandwich.
Yeah, that one, with the cheese curds and everything. Wasn't that a thing? Ooh. No? Did I make that up?
Actually, that doesn't sound bad, like a poutine sandwich.
Ooh, did we just invent a thing? Did we just invent something? Copyrighted by Suspicious Minds Podcast, the poutine sandwich.
Ooh. Yeah, we're watching you, Canada.
Yeah. If they start making them after this becomes a thing, it started here first. But that does lead us into Would You Believe?
Uh-oh.
All right. So I got a couple of them. I don't have a ton.
Okay.
But I got a few. So, would you believe, this is one is stamp related, would you believe that every time you lick envelope glue, you consume 3 to 5 calories? Would you believe?
I would believe that.
That is true. You do. You get it.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Which seems like a lot. I would think like 1.
Yeah.
Like 3 to 5. Like, this is really calorie dense. If you had about 50 envelopes around, you could probably survive. 50 envelopes a day, just licking those. I don't know about your macros, though. I don't know if you're getting fiber and all that stuff. It's just strict glucose.
Well, then you eat the envelope, and that's your fiber.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's smart. Yeah, because the wood pulp, will clean you out.
Right.
Yeah, you just keep it regular. More so than a Subway sandwich. I should get off the Subway sandwich bit here. I should stop talking about them.
No,
You're doing good work, Subway. Keep it up, Subway. All right, so would you believe that the first Elvis stamp made was in 1978 on Sentinel Island was the name of it, which is off the coast of India. However, the Sentinelese government decided not to fund the stamp. So they went through the whole thing. They had it out. They printed some of them, and then they kind of cut off. So they are around, but they're very hard to come by. They're kind of a collector's item. Would you believe?
It's like the formula for these would you believes is that I think the more elaborate the story, the less I'm inclined to believe it. So I'm going to say no, I do not believe that.
That is true. That's false. But I will tell you this. Do yourself a favor and look up Sentinel Island. It is the most nightmarish thing you'll ever hear about. You can't be in a boat even a few miles off of it. It's just like society that's completely closed off, and you can't go there. And if you go there, the people will murder you. But I don't think they have stamps, and they probably don't know who Elvis is.
Sentinel Island, named for all those mutant hunting robots from the X-Men. That's where they all live, and that's why you don't want to go there.
That's exactly true. They're a mutant hunting group of people created by Chris Claremont.
Yes, shout out.
Yeah, there you go.
My favorite Canadian.
Wow, really? Interesting.
Yeah, Chris Claremont, that poutine sandwich is going to be sent to your house, courtesy of Suspicious Minds.
I'm going to say my favorite Canadian might be Martin Short.
Ooh, okay. I want to change my answer. Sorry,
But you know what? You can't now. You've already said it. So
God
I said,
damn it.
so I've got Martin Short. So Martin Short, if you're listening, you are my favorite Canadian. Thank you very much.
Actually, I want to change mine too. John Candy.
I think he's just everybody's favorite person.
Yeah.
You know,
Saying that John Candy is your favorite Canadian is like voting for the 1950s Elvis stamp.
it's just easy to do.
Yeah. Everyone's doing it.
You'll do it every day if you can.
Right.
Maybe 20 to 30 times, like somebody I know. So, would you believe, in 1973, Colonel Tom Parker tried to get an Elvis stamp made to commemorate the satellite broadcast from Hawaii. But he found out that they wouldn't make it because the United States Postal Service didn't make stamps of living people. Would you believe?
I am going to believe that, and I'll tell you why. Because the Colonel was not American and wouldn't have known that.
It is false, but also plausible.
Yeah.
You know, I would say. All right, there we go. Here's a would you believe. So, would you believe Elvis in 1987, they could have made a stamp. But one of the reasons it took 6 years to get a stamp made of Elvis was because people kept saying that there were Elvis sightings. So they were like, he could be alive. So they couldn't technically confirm that he was dead. So they kept pushing it back. And that's one of the reasons it took so long to get an Elvis stamp. Would you believe?
I am going to say I don't believe that.
That's true.
Yeah. It is true?
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the reasons they didn't do it, because of all the Elvis sightings. Isn't that
Lord.
weird?
Yeah. There's a lot of husky guys with sideburns out there. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. Yeah, just singing their little hearts out. Pretty crazy. And then finally, I'll make this my final would you believe. I've got a couple other ones, but I think I'm just going to call it a day on this one. So, would you believe the first public appearance of Lisa Marie on behalf of Elvis was at Graceland in 1993 for the release of the Elvis stamp? Would you believe?
I am going to believe that.
That's
because
true.
I was watching
Yep.
it.
I kind of figured you'd get that. That was kind of a gimme.
And I remember seeing Lisa Marie at that event and thinking, wow, man, the Presley DNA is so strong. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just kind of like, no matter who Presleys tend to breed with, man, you just can't kill that Presley DNA. It just comes through so strong every time. And yeah.
Yeah, I know. Here's what I think it is. I think they both Elvis and Lisa Marie, they have Gladys's eyes. They're they're a little sad. And then you worry about them a little bit, and that's what it is. I think that's the attraction. Mm-hmm. I may be making that up. I don't know.
Very high cheekbones.
The high cheekbones, the very piercing eyes. So those are the would you believes. I think you did pretty good on those. I think you did about a 50-50 split.
Good. Yeah.
You're doing better. I used to get it with all of them. I'm losing my touch, I think.
It's like you're getting older.
Or you're getting wiser. It could be
maybe two of the things happening at the same time.
Well, I do have one other piece of business to talk to you about it, and I think this is something you and I think with our listeners, I think if we try, we could get this to happen. And I think in 1993 and in 2015, they made a stamp for Elvis. One thing that they haven't done is put him on a coin or any sort of currency. And I think if we really put our minds to it, the Suspicious Minds community, if you will, if we put our minds to it, I think we could maybe start a petition to get Elvis on a coin or some sort of U.S. currency.
Sure, I'm all in.
And I have a suggestion for what it should be. I think it should be the 77-cent piece.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah. But no, seriously, they've done a lot with like quarters, maybe like $50. I don't know. We can hash all that out with the Treasury, but I think we should really start a petition that Elvis should be on currency. They put painters and all that stuff on French currency and musicians. Why is Elvis one of our greatest musical exports, an iconic image known the world around? Why is he not on our currency?
It's true. And I think that would cause an entire cottage industry of stuff that costs exactly 77 cents to pop up. And, it's like I'm lucky enough to be in a city that has dozens of White Castles. But White Castles cost way more than $1 now. It's like even like the standard White Castle, it's like $1.35 or something, which is crazy. But I think there should be a 77-cent out-the-door cheeseburger that you can buy with that coin.
And I'm failing that, you could just have, let's say, like something would cost like 2 Presleys, right?
Sure.
It was $1.54, which is like a pretty good price. $1.50 for something, give or take, 4 cents. But, and then that covers taxes. And everything's like something plus tax already.
Sure.
So if you're paying like 50 cents, it's technically it's going to be over that. So this is covering a couple cents of tax. But if you said literally something that costs like 2 Presleys.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Like an issue of Captain Marvel Jr., a.k.a. Shazam. Like a Dr. Pepper or a grape knee-high.
Like a hot dog soda fry combo.
Ooh.
Yeah.
At the local 7-Eleven. Which should maybe rename themselves the 77.
There you go. All these things. We could really make this stuff happen. I don't know.
Corporate America, I hope you're listening because we are just like feeding you guys nuggets for free.
Well, I think we figured it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what else do we have to say about the stamp? I think, now, do you still have any of them? Do you still have like a book of Elvis stamps or do you use them all?
I used every Elvis stamp I ever bought. I have no Elvis stamps. I'm not a collector. I just don't have them.
You're not a philatelist.
No.
Maybe in the wee hours of the morning.
Well,
You'll
I heard
philatel a little bit. You'll philatel when nobody's looking.
This is purely a rumor, but I heard Marilyn Manson got a rib removed so he could self-philatel.
Yeah. I heard he did that because he sat on a stamp one time and he had to get it off himself. So that's why he had that off.
Right. Because, it never wants anyone to know he was that kid from the Wonder Years.
If you touch that guy, you know what you're going to come away with? A carbuncle. You can get yourself a carbuncle. You have to go to the doctor and get it removed.
Here's a question. What year do you think the U.S. Postal Service will finally issue a KISS stamp?
Oh.
And a KISS stamp, is it going to be all 4 of them? Or is it just going to be Gene? Because let's face it, it would be Gene if it was just one of them.
Yeah. If they're going to do it, they should do it like the individual ones, like when they had their own solo albums.
Sure.
I think that's how you should do it.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
It would have been rad if in the Legends of American Music stamp series that one of them would have been just like randomly Peter Criss. And he would have been like, wait a minute, I'm not dead. But it's also an honor.
Well, here's the thing. In 2011, they stopped that. You could be alive and they could make a stamp out of you.
Oh, wild. I did not know that.
Would you believe? But no, they did for some reason. I don't know why exactly. But they ended that tradition probably because they wanted to make a stamp of somebody who was alive so they could make some money. And I think the other thing was, I think the U.S. Postal Service has just been defunded so many times that
oh my God,
that they probably just have to make money however the hell they can make money.
Sure. But yeah, seriously, if they made an Ace Frehley stamp, I would buy 500 of them, and that would be like the only stamp I would use until they ran out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, you could order like multiple books of those stamps. And then just use them. How often do you mail anything anymore? It might last you the rest of your life.
I mean, honestly, like what, 10 times a year, 12 times a year? I don't know. Because so many of the bills that I pay are just like, online. I don't
exactly
actually mail something.
So there's something to be said for that. Yeah, you could get yourself 100 stamps and you might be set. I think if you just hold on to them, then you'll live forever, though.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it's the secret to a long life.
You heard it first.
You heard it here first. We may have jumped the shark a little bit on that one. But anyway, back to the 77-cent Elvis coin. I think that's what we need to get to. That's what that's what we need to go out on.
So what would the design on the Elvis coin be?
I think you got to have him singing, probably in a jumpsuit, American flag in the back. Maybe an eagle flying past him or something.
I can dig it. I can dig it.
But then he's like playing a guitar that's like shaped like a gun, like some sort of rifle or some sort of like assault rifle. You got to get like the Second Amendment in there somewhere. So something like that. But no, I think, him on a guitar, maybe full bodied kind of thing. Or I guess maybe just him in profile singing. Maybe like a Velvet Elvis-y kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
On the back, him on a power trike.
Well, no, I think they should, like, instead of having the White House, they should have Graceland.
Okay, yeah, I'm into it. It.
And maybe like Graceland, but the image of him in Graceland from the 50s. So the front would be 70s Elvis. And then the back would be him in front of the pink Cadillac right after he'd bought the house, like him standing out in front, the real famous picture of him.
Oh, sure.
In front of Graceland. Yeah, and that's on the back, but, definitely get the whole thing there. I think that would work.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
So I think that probably wraps the show up here. So a couple of things to go over. Once again, thank you for listening. And if you need to send us an email for any reason, you can get in touch with us at suspiciousmindspodcast77@gmail.com. Or if you would like to text us or leave a voicemail, anything like that, you could do that at 773-389-4276. Because for some reason we have a phone number, but I like that we have it. Nobody calls it, but we have it. So feel free to call us, leave a voicemail if you want, or text, and maybe we'll get around to texting you back. I don't check it all the time because nobody calls. So
with so many good ideas we had this episode, the Prime Minister of Canada may be contacting us soon.
Or Martin Short. Who knows? So Martin, if you're out there, that'd be nice.
I would love that. What a dream that would be. Wow.
That'd be really nice, yeah. Maybe something.
We love you, Martin Short.
Well, you like John Candy quite a bit. I'm a big Martin Short fan, so you made it known already.
Well, John Candy's not going to call me, though.
That's true. But you've already picked a couple of Canadians before Martin Short. I didn't do that.
Oh, man. I forgot William Shatner.
It's too late now. You're just digging yourself deeper there, Wade.
I am.
So, speaking of digging ourselves deeper, let's talk about our social media really quick. Where can people find us on social media?
Oh, sure. You could always find Suspicious Minds Podcast on Instagram. That seems to be like the big one for us. And what you're looking for is just Suspicious Minds Podcast on Instagram. And you could also find us on Facebook, which I really need to do a hell of a lot more Facebook stuff, which, is kind of coming across as like an abandoned amusement park these days. But we're at Suspicious Minds Podcast with Wade and Burl. There's like a little bit of stuff going on there, but you should check it out. I think we need to get a Twitter. What do you think?
I think we should maybe hold off on that. Things are a little bit weird over there right now. So
yeah.
I think, when we started this a while ago, I think it would have been a great idea. I would agree with you. Right now, it's just seems like, let's wait and see. Let's see if there's a Twitter in a few more months.
Right.
Maybe let's buy it with all of our... How many Presleys do you think it costs to buy Twitter?
Ooh, I don't know. A few thousand?
15?
Yeah, 15.
I would wager 15 Presleys. But... we'll see. We'll see. I think the price is going down, so we might be able to get it for 12 Presleys.
Sure. I think we should maybe try to bring MySpace back. What do you think?
I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Well, look for us on MySpace under Suspicious Minds Podcast. Put us in your top 8.
Who ran the show over there? Was it Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slender fella, always kind of looking over his shoulder.
Yeah, well, there's always someone coming for him. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. Once again, thank you for listening to the episode, and I learned a lot.
Yeah,
I learned a lot. I laughed a lot.
It's like what we found out today was that the Elvis stamp were the friends we met along the way.
Oh, boy. All right, with that, I think we should call it a night, Wade. Once again, I have been Burl.
And I'm always Wade still.
All right. Thanks for listening again, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you. Good night.